Today, I am talking with Karen Holland. Welcome, Karen.
Hi, John.
Oh, it's great to have you on. Before we begin with the questions that I have prepared for you, could you please tell us a little bit about yourself and what led you to create this great program, Gifting Sense, and your DIMS, D-I-M-S, or Does It Make Sense score?
The origin story. Well, I'm a person in the third act of life. I caution all my friends. I'm not sure we can employ the term middle-aged anymore. I don't know any 120-year-olds. I don't know about you, but I don't have any friends that are 120. And I was a sovereign risk analyst for Canada's largest bank. And I'm a mom, and I'm one of three girls, and I've been married 35 years. And when my sisters and I were growing up, our mother, who was a kindergarten teacher, gave us a monthly allowance starting in middle school. And the very first time she asked us to anticipate all the money that we would need to buy what we needed for back to school, beginning of grade 8. And so, we really went to town and we came up with what we thought was an enormously comprehensive list. And we were shocked when she immediately agreed. Of course, she had a lot more life experience than we did, and she knew that we'd woefully underestimated what would be required to sustain ourselves on a monthly basis. And we started getting our allowance once a month, starting in September of grade 8. And the first couple of months, I blew it. I remember I bought a pair of burgundy penny loafers. And then I'm going to date myself here. I could not buy Gee, Your Hair Smells Terrific shampoo or Bonnie Bell lip smackers or any of the things that we eighth grade girls were interested in. And I think back, it would have been so easy for my mother to have, acquiesced and maybe given me another $5, but she didn't do it. And so guess what? I got really good at making trade-offs and making sure that I didn't have that very unpleasant experience of my social life being crowded out by lifestyle purchases, for lack of a better description.
Well, that is a testament to your mom, the importance of this holding your ground. We talk about this a lot. It's so, because especially at the beginning of any program, it's really hard, you guys weren't probably, you're past tantrum stage, but if you're starting an allowance younger, that's going to be the issue. The kid's going to throw a tantrum, but all you have to do is get through one or two tantrums, and then the kids get it. They're like, okay, well, I guess I need to figure out how to start saving money if I want something that's
You know
beyond
that
what I have.
that reminds me, John, of a parenting adage that I have shared many times over, and it may in fact be from Barbara Colarosa's Kids Are Worth It, which is kids do what works. So if
Yes.
having a tantrum works, they're going to have tantrums.
Yeah.
But if having a tantrum doesn't work, that makes quick work of the tantrums, right? Because
Yeah.
they're efficient. They're efficient optimization machines. They do what works.
Optimization machines is dead on. I think you're right. Barbara Colarosa, who I recently interviewed and we were talking about beforehand, who is one of the OGs of parenting. She was one of those people. It's one of those books that I read and I immediately smacked my head and said, I wish I had read this earlier. It's so good. There's so much great stuff in here. And I'm glad you referenced her. And I think you're right. I think she talks about exactly that thing because they are optimization machines. So I want to ask you here, your Does It Make Sense score, which is like a core part of Gifting Sense, right? It's the kids go through this process of some item that they want to buy, and then they get this score. What I really like about it is that it goes so hand in hand with allowance and what we were just talking about, which is that because I've heard you say this before, like sometimes parents worry that they're going to print out or have a digital copy of this DIM score. They're going to wave it around and say, listen, it makes sense. And then the parents are going to think, oh, what can I do if it makes sense? And I don't necessarily want them to have it, or I don't want to pay for that. This is why they have an allowance, is now it makes sense, but only if they have the means to pay for it, right? And I love that idea. It's not up to the parent to fund the purchase, just like your mom was saying. It is up to the kid. So it makes sense within context, correct?
It's all about context. Context transforms every conversation. And what we call the DIM score calculator is a mindful spending tool. It's a permissionless mindful spending tool. So there's no registration or paywall required to use it. And it just encourages kids to get into the habit of asking and answering simple questions about typical purchases before they spend their money or anyone else's. And what that does is very naturally, organically, quickly reveal to young people that anyone can get and use information, financial information, to make their life better, which for a young person feels like avoiding disappointment, reducing waste, improving family harmony. I mean, there are lots of family arguments about money, but no one enjoys them. And then it even helps protect the planet because, of course, mindful spending, thinking before buying, is the easiest way to be a planet protector. When you only buy what you're going to actually use and appreciate, you automatically lower your carbon footprint and the number of items that you put into a landfill in your lifetime. So we call it a win, 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 win.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, this is definitely a tool if you're a parent out there, because like Karen said, it's open for anybody to use. I highly recommend you going to the site and playing around with it because it's just very useful. I mean, what I love about this, why I was excited about the conversation is it is such a natural fit to what we talk about with the money manuals we have: Share and Save and Spend Smart. This is the next stage in Spend Smart. I mean, I wrote a book about spending smart, but this, you're getting at the experiential part of it, which is, it's all about the experiential part. And I think it's great. So I want to ask you though, because we began with kind of younger kids, right? And so you focus on middle school. Tell us why you decided to focus on middle school.
Okay, well, the short answer is in all honesty, because that's when mom started to teach us these lessons. And then maybe a little piece that's missing from the origin story is that I didn't realize that everybody wasn't taught mindful spending until I became a parent myself. And then, it's sort of this battle cry at large of all parents that kids don't understand the value of a dollar. But instincts come from near misses. We don't often let kids experience near misses when it comes to spending. And then we're sort of flummoxed and we think, geez, what's wrong with these kids? They don't have any instincts. So I knew from my own experience, both in childhood and then as a parent, because of course, I mean, we parent one of two ways. We either like how we were parented and we mimic that, or we don't and we move away from it. But I had a very nice childhood. So I was just doing the same thing with my son and my nephew. And I knew that applying a small amount of consistent thinking to making consumer decisions was really helpful, not just to the kids, but also to the parents. It really cut down on any of this discord. So the short answer is why middle school? It's because that's when mom started with us.
Okay.
And unfortunately, my mother passed when she was quite young, certainly before I became a mother. So I haven't had the opportunity to have this conversation with her, but she was a kindergarten teacher. And so I suspect that she knew that middle school was this developmental sweet spot. And one thing that I've learned over the 12 years I've been doing this is very simple equation, which is readiness plus plasticity equals lasting impact.
Okay, go deeper on that. Explain.
Okay, I will. Now, I do want to put out the caveat. I am no sort of brain expert. I'm a retired sovereign risk analyst, but I am so interested in solving this challenge of financial illiteracy. I mean, you and I have had this conversation. This is a solvable problem. Give me one of those, right? We are awash in problems that really, what can private citizens do anything to help resolve? But this one, John, we can solve this one. So I will go deep in, but I'm not a brain expert. Mm-hmm. So it turns out infancy is, of course, the most intense period of brain activity and growth. But did you know that early adolescence is the second most intense period? So what happens is we create all these synaptic connections. And then somewhere between 10 and 14, we start to prune those. The ones that aren't being used regularly, they fall away. And so if you will, we're sort of concentrating our brain power. And that allows us to understand consequences, make connections, understand the consequence of our behavior. It's also when the prefrontal cortex is under construction. So
Mm-hmm.
that's, again, where cause and effect takes hold, and executive functioning. We're very receptive to rewards, and we're very socially and emotionally aware during early adolescence, 10 to 14 years of age, or middle school. So all of this is incredibly fertile soil for introducing the habits of pausing, gathering information, and reflecting before you make a decision. And when we embed those lessons in a educational social context like school, it gives the desired behaviors status and stickiness. I mean, who doesn't want to be known as a smart spender? Who doesn't want to be known as good with money? So middle school is this developmental sweet spot. It's really purpose built for what we do at Gifting Sense.
Okay, so you just said that in middle school. So the number one thing that I know about having raised kids who've gone through middle school, you have too, is that number one, they just want to fit in, right? So you say everybody would want to be known as someone who's spending smart, unless is that true? Because I'm going to push back. If
Okay.
they're around a cohort of people that are not spending smart, so how do you empower them when number one, they want to fit in, and then number two, they might want to be known as the one who's spending smart? Does that make sense what I'm saying?
I think I know where you're going. So I'll share that we begin every workshop, we poll the class, and we ask them if anyone there has ever received a holiday or a birthday gift and it wasn't quite what they were hoping for. And of course, you know the answer, right? 93% of students in the last academic year answered yes to that question.
Yep.
So then we go through the most typical responses that we've received over the last decade. I mean, I feel like I should do a public service announcement and say, everybody gets socks and pajamas, and it does not mean that your parents don't care about you. So what we love about that exercise, and sometimes we use a learning management system called Nearpod, so we can poll the kids anonymously and then share the results in front of the whole class in a pie chart.
Yep.
It really normalizes that money is scarce for many families and finite for all.
Yeah.
And then most of the time, kids are super jazzed about the workshop because they're instructed to come to class with a possible purchase in mind. So you're right, most kids this age they're jonesing for something, right?
Yeah.
So how often do you get to work on a problem that matters to you in school, which is, should I buy this item or experience? Not very often. So we've sort of got a hook in early. But of course, there are times when they're just tacitly moving through the doesn't make sense score calculator at the behest of a teacher, or if it's at home, a parent.
Yeah.
Here's what happens. The minute they see that shareable summary, what we call the DIM score report, which organizes all the information about a possible purchase in a way that the vast majority of parents are open to receiving, kids are like everybody else. They don't necessarily know what the truth is, but they know it when they see it or hear it, and they go, now, wait a minute. That could help me. This is something like, these are questions that my parents have asked me before. This helps me look like I've done my homework, that I've really thought about it. Of course, what they don't necessarily understand out of the gates is it also results, that process results in fewer, better quality requests to spend, because you answer all the questions and you're like, oh, geez, I don't know, orange linen bell-bottom pants. How often can I really wear those? Maybe I'm going to hold off. Right. Yeah. Or in the case of, like Super Bowl, every January, kids are calculating the doesn't make sense score for Super Bowl tickets. They have zero idea that this is a thousands of dollars proposition. The minute they discover that, they want to abandon ship. So, sort of the hard cost part, if you will, is at the front end. And half the time they're like, oh, wait a minute, there's no way this is going to happen. And we're like, no, just keep going, because this is a construct for thinking, and you can use this model for any purchase, right? It's just applying a small amount of consistent thinking to this problem. Should I buy or ask for this item or experience? So we do have parents and educators who are sometimes concerned that we're enabling kids to ask for things that, their parents can't afford, or that are, really unrealistic or out of the realm of possibilities. And I'm here to tell you, I'm now confident, I've been doing it for so long, that is just not what happens. Yeah. Kids are super aware of their family's situation, and that's really not what happens. And The other thing that we do is we encourage them to use that DIM score report to crowdfund the purchase of one larger, more meaningful gift amongst extended family members, right? I mean, particularly for out of town, aunts and uncles and grandparents who maybe aren't part of the day-to-day life of kids, it's really hard for them to know what's going to hit the mark. And, so they buy them hoodies they don't want to wear or books they won't read. I mean, I cannot tell you how many people have received pierced earrings and they don't have pierced ears. And you can't put lipstick on that, John. I mean, it's just nobody feels heard when they get pierced earrings and they don't have pierced ears, right? It's just, you can't win. Right. So this is a process that lets parents graciously, politely answer the question, what would John, Lisa like for a birthday or a holiday gift? And we say to the kids, they can text that report, they can print out a hard copy. We encourage them to send it with a handwritten note, or if they email it, to compose a letter to go with the email that says, look, I know you asked Mom and Dad what I would like. I know this is a big ticket item: hockey skates, a baseball bat, a dance costume. Apparently these dance costumes, I don't have daughters, but I hear the dance costumes are just crazy expensive. So this is what I would really like, will use and appreciate. And I would be so grateful for a 20, 30, 40, whatever it is, dollar contribution to something that I'll really use and appreciate, right? And what grandparent or aunt and uncle wouldn't rather do that than spend their hard-earned money on, fire starter, which is our euphemistic description for, it's an alarming number of gifts that really are never used or appreciated.
Well, that really, it does get at, because you make that claim that this can be something that's good for the environment or climate, or the environment. And I agree with you, because I think there's so much junk. Any family, even when you have a commitment to reduce the amount of junk, knows when they're younger, we just had rules like if you get one thing, you had to get
one in, one out, right?
And so often those 10 things show up. And there was nothing nefarious about it. It was all very good intentions, like you're getting at. Like the uncles want to buy something, the grandparents want to buy something, all really well intentioned. And then all of a sudden you're swimming in this pile of stuff, right? And so I love this idea, because you touched on something when you first were talking about the DIM score about reducing discord. And that really resonated with me, because I found that is what happens with an allowance too. I mean, these things tie together, is that it reduces the discord because you're putting the responsibility on the kid. Do you want to go a little bit deeper on the discord side of things?
Well, the way I would describe it is it gets everybody singing from the same song sheet. So to me, most family discord about spending stems from the open-ended question, what's the big deal? I just want to go to the movies. What's the big deal? Well, parents know the big deal is not the $8 movie ticket. It's the fact that you need $16 for popcorn and soda, and you need a way to get there and back safely. And you might have pre-existing commitments, or there's just no way to swing it. So when a young person goes through the quick but not arbitrary process of calculating the does it make sense score, all the facts of a purchase are laid bare. So in other words, before they even go to their parents and have a discussion, they know what the big deal is. Yeah. And what we've observed is oftentimes they stop themselves. They go, actually, this is a bigger deal than I'm asked about getting this item or experience, right? So they know it's not worth it, because again, they may not articulate it in this fashion, but they have some inner sense of, I'm allowed X chits per period of time. So many times I can go to the well, and actually when I go through this process, I discover I don't want to spend one of those on this particular item or experience. So we say it improves family harmony because it gets everybody singing from the same song sheet. And similarly for the parents, if a child, normally they don't just do it once, they do it a couple of times. They're massaging it, right? They want the answers to be just so. And then they upload an image, which we really encourage them to do. We're like, please do not send your 75-year-old grandparents to Foot Locker to buy you a pair of Air Jordans without a photo of the exact pair you want. I mean, you are mandating them to failure. They have no chance of getting the right thing, right? So please put a photo in. That's why we created that ability. But when they actually get to the point where they've generated the summary and they want to share it, it helps parents harken back to a time when they were young, when the only way they could do or get something was with their parents' help. And it just, it just really warms the whole crowd up on both sides of the table. And
Yeah.
you can have some really great conversations.
It's dawning on me. You may have made it clear to everyone out there about the tool, but I think it's worth having you detail, because there might be parents out there thinking it's like a big deal. You're asking some questions about a tool, but I think I know the thought that you put into the questions, and I've gone through the process, and I was surprised by the questions, because they are digging deep into things like, for example, how many reuses of this product are you going to have? Can you talk about a few of those kind of questions that make this tool a much more powerful, critical thinking driving tool? I really want people to go and use the tool. So can you go a little deeper on your
Sure.
question method?
Well, in the case of items, you're right. We have all sorts of questions about use and how to naturally extend the life cycle of a purchase.
Yep.
So, for example, when you're done with this basketball or hockey net or dance costume or super fancy blow dryer or straight iron or whatever it is, do you have a sibling or a cousin who might be able to use it? Because the truth of the matter is, very, very few things are actually worn out, right? We grow out of them. One question we ask kids all the time is, what are kids around the world doing, regardless of gender, ethnicity, geography, religion? Like, no matter where they are, there's one thing that kids everywhere are doing.
Yep.
They're growing.
Yep.
So we also really encourage them to be realistic when they answer these questions. Like, out of the gates, they're like, I'm going to wear these Air Jordans like 65 days of the year for 7 years. And I'm like, well, you live in Wisconsin and you're 11, which means 11 months from now, your toes are coming at the end of those Air Jordans and you can't even wear them in the dead of winter because there's 4 feet of snow.
Yeah.
And we tell the kids the dim score calculator is like any other tool, garbage in, garbage out. So if you don't answer the questions earnestly, the minute your caregivers see that shareable summary, they're going to know, right? Okay, you cannot wear those shoes 7 years in a row consecutively. Yep. For an experience, I mean, it's interesting. I actually think, I mean, kids are surprised at how costly a seemingly small online purchase becomes when you just even add in sales tax and shipping. And for Canadians, I'm Canadian. A lot of Canadian kids buy things from US retail sites. And so sometimes there is a duty charge. That's a huge shocker, because all of a sudden what seemed reasonable, it can easily double in price.
Yeah.
But I think real epiphanies come when they're calculating the doesn't make sense score for an experience, because the ticket price is just the beginning. What about safe transportation? What about snacks? What about souvenirs, right? And it's not a full experience unless you can do all of that. So you don't want these surprises, these phantom costs, to be spoilers, which means you've really got to plan for them. And on average, it's about 3-to-1, the total cost of an experience versus the ticket price. So we just put out a program for the World Cup. I'm sure you know the World Cup is coming to North America in 2026. It's the first time ever. It's going to be hosted by Canada, the US, and Mexico. And, kids are just wild for these tickets, and they are eye-wateringly expensive. But we think this is a fantastic opportunity for parents to let their kids understand that big dreams can come true with planning and patience. I think even now we've still got, is it 34 weeks until the first game, I think, is June 12th, 2026. So
right.
Again, two things are going to happen when a young person calculates the doesn't make sense score for FIFA tickets. They're either going to go, oh, okay, actually, because I don't live in a town that's anywhere near a stadium, so this requires overnight travel, a hotel, yada, yada, yada. This is actually a $2,000 endeavor. I'm not that big a soccer fan. It doesn't mean that much to me. Or they're going to go, you know what? It's $900 day trip into Atlanta, but this is a once in a lifetime chance for me to see, my team. I really want to be there. And therefore, they are primed and ready to make trade-offs to help the family move that purchase from wish list to reality. In either case, it's a win-win, right? If they decide of their own volition, actually, probably not worth it. That's a win. But if they decide they really want it and you've got enough time to put a plan in place and teach them how much can be accomplished, that's a huge win too.
What you're getting at is the importance, and this is something that we talk about as a key habit for kids, is just understanding making smart money choices, right? And that you're always making choices, whether you're being mindful about it or not. And so that's what this tool really is focused on, is helping them understand that there are choices. And there are also questions that they need to ask that lead to other potential choices. I mean, as we're talking, I'm thinking the one thing I don't think you covered is like the Diderot effect, right? The idea that, which you covered a lot of stuff, Karen. But I'm just thinking, this idea that, once you get the nice shoes, all of a sudden now your pants look crummy, and now you need pants, and you need better pants, you need better shirts. You get a nice rug, and now you need a better couch. And it's there's so much that goes into every purchase. Have at it, Karen.
We do a little when it comes to formal wear. So that was a really important category for parents when we ran the pilot, because now even grade 8 graduation is like a huge thing, right? I mean, I kind of think like grade 8 graduation is table stakes, but we can't fight City Hall, right? Like it's a thing. Right. So when you're getting that dress, one of the questions, or suit, whatever it is do you need anything else to really make this outfit work? Because that's relevant. If the choice is between 2 dresses or 2 outfits, and one you already have footwear for and the other you don't, like, you want to be mindful of that, because buying footwear is an added real expense. Yep. And you gave us feedback. I mean, one of the things that is fantastic about being a digital platform is that you're able to incorporate user feedback very efficiently. So one question that we often ask kids is, would your future self high five this choice? And that, again, puts the onus on them, right? Because do you want to make your parents happy? Do you want to make your grandparents or your teachers happy? I mean, sometimes you do, sometimes you don't, right? Sometimes you need to be a little more mature before that's top of mind, but you always want to make yourself happy.
I'm almost 57. It took me a long time to have any kind of real future focused perspective. As a kid, everything is like, the person who's 20 is way old when you're 12, right? But what you're doing is introducing them to this concept, right? The future you concept.
It's funny. I'm trying to remember who said it now, but somebody actually said to us that the DIM score calculator is a bridge from the present to the future. Because it turns impulse into insight, right? Yeah. And collected insights over time give us confidence. I mean, confidence is just the feeling of success repeated. Yeah. So if you can have this experience where, this is not there's no liver transplants here, right? This is not a major investment of time. First time, maybe it takes you 5 minutes to calculate the doesn't make sense score, but once you become familiar with the platform, this is a 2-minute exercise. Yeah. So imagine how powerful it is for a young person to discover that, wow, I take 2 minutes out to answer these simple questions about typical purchases. And again, I mean, I keep on repeating myself, but it's true. Avoid disappointment, stop getting repeat gifts I won't use or appreciate. Avoid waste, because your family members, I mean, we say to kids all the time, here's the bad news. It takes time and money even to buy you stuff you don't want, don't use, don't appreciate. So let's put that to bed, right? Improve family harmony, protect the planet. So children wouldn't use these words, but they certainly recognize, wow, that's a pretty high return on investment. I can do it all at once for free, and I get to avoid all of this drama. That's worth my time.
I mean, you just dawned on me, I forget which app it is, that introduces friction in a very frictionless process, right? So one of the things they would do in a savings account, and again, I can't remember what the program was, but you would have to like physically tap on the screen to break the safe or the glass in order to get access to the saving, which is good. But it's if the kid wants it, they're going to just tap a few times. But the idea of having a DIM score on top of all purchases, or purchases of a certain amount or beyond, tied into the app that you're using to pay for things for kids, especially for these, because that's a big thing now, are these debit cards that are like training wheels. So they're debit cards that allow the parents to see what their kids are spending their money on, allow money to be transferred to the kids. And that's good, except that you still need to introduce friction. It just seems like this would be such a perfect thing rather than just a classroom tool, but like an in the experience type of tool.
So it's interesting that you use that metaphor of training wheels. We use a lot of sports and driving metaphors and a lot of humor because that's what resonates with kids.
Yeah.
So I think of these youth debit cards as graduated licensing, right? So, when you first learn to drive, your first license, we call it your 365, says, first you can only be in the car with a parent, then you can only be in the car with yourself, then you have to be home before midnight, and then at the very end of the road, you can be in the car with other teenagers and come home, at 1 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
I liken the doesn't make sense score calculator to spending ed. So, we have driver's ed because we say to ourselves, well, we would never let our kids out on the road to actually drive a car until we gave them this foundational skills and awareness, right? Like, this is what a stop sign looks like, and this is how you approach a yield, and you have to put your blinker on when you turn. So we think of it as spending ed. It provides kids with the same foundational skills and awareness, and it's a spending speed bump. And if you want to extend the metaphor, if you think about driving a car in real life, a speed bump does not stop you from getting anywhere you really want to go.
Mm-hmm.
It does help you get there safely.
That is interesting. I was as I'm thinking about it, I'm also thinking about the metaphor of athletics because you're just getting your reps in, right? And you're getting your reps in. This is why I think the idea of making it a tool on top that is required before you spend cash. You need to have some kind of threshold, but you get your reps in where you actually have to go through all the questions, and then after a while, you don't have to go through the questions because you're mentally processing all those questions.
Okay.
As part of who
Thank
you are,
you.
right? Yeah.
This is why early financial education is such an elegant upstream solution to financial illiteracy, because when we imprint the habit of pausing, gathering information, and reflecting before spending money,
Yep.
it becomes a default setting for when we're older. The real issue is that, and this, all of our money habits and beliefs are established as early as 7, fully baked in by high school. If you have a set of unproductive habits and beliefs, their ability to undermine your financial well-being is really masked by the fact that you don't make your most consequential financial decisions until 15, 20 years later. Think about it. When do you choose a post-secondary program, a car, a house?
Mm-hmm.
So
Or
it's
don't forget taking out a student loan.
so much easier to avoid a pitfall than dig out of one.
Yep.
What we're trying to do is create circumstances under which kids develop productive money habits and beliefs out of the gates. Because what we have right now is, there's some precipitous negative event, you default on a loan, you declare bankruptcy. And so then you have to go through this, quite difficult process of identifying your money habits and beliefs, because again, they're unconscious, and then attempting to re-engineer the parts that really aren't serving you. I mean, just imagine if you just grew up understanding that, if you got information before you made the decisions, you could really avoid a lot of heartache. I mean,
Okay. So
okay,
you brought the Cambridge study, right? I see this
okay.
study. I mean, we've all I remember when I got into this like 2 decades ago, I brought the Cambridge study, but it supports what we are obsessively interested in, right? The importance of starting the money conversation early. But what does it suggest to parents who might not have started a program or a conversation by age 8 or worse later? And doesn't it mean then that programs that are aimed later at 8 and above are really just about breaking bad habits rather than establishing good ones?
Okay, well, I think it says nothing to parents who haven't started by age 8, because developmental windows they're not these hard, sharp periods, right? It's like the adage for planting a tree. I mean, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, and the next best time is tonight or tomorrow.
Yeah.
So it is never too late. And certainly, as long as a young person is, under your roof, I would say, you still have a golden opportunity. I mean, it's a lot harder now for students to amass unwitting credit card debt than it used to be after, Obama put that Credit Card Act into place. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Now you can't solicit on campuses, and you have to have an adult cosigner and all of that. But let's just say you've got a 19-year-old who somehow has spent more than they should in their first year of college. Okay, well, IOF, identify, own, fix. Like, it's how far wrong could they go, right? They haven't graduated with a program that doesn't suit them at all. They haven't, bought some huge house. I mean, it's not a total disaster. You still have a chance to address it. So, I mean, I do think that ideally it happens. And again, thinking before buying isn't a silver bullet. There's no such thing as one and done in financial literacy. What we're trying to do is convince kids before they become adult income earners that being good with money is a worthy pursuit, right?
Yeah.
The problem is not a lack of information. There is more amazing information than ever before in the history of the planet. More books, programs, apps, you name it. And it's more democratically accessible thanks to the World Wide Web, right? It's never been easier to get this great information. And yet we have like a not insignificant number of people not availing themselves to employer sponsored savings programs, like all of these things. So why? Why is that? Because they don't believe that information is for them. They don't believe they can use that information to make their life better. We want to give school-age children a firsthand experience that it's unequivocal. Anybody can ask questions about money. Anybody can get and use financial information to help shape their future. Think about how powerful an experience that is, discovering that you have agency at that young an age. And from that point forward, there's none of this, it's somebody else's fault or I can't do it. It's what do I have to do to put the steps in place? I mean,
Yeah.
it's a game changer.
It is a game changer. I think the other thing, though, is that it's more than that in terms of purchasing, because the other thing that most people don't, and especially kids don't get, is that things are never going to bring you happiness. Like they're, aside from anything that's that's very, very fleeting, right? And which is why we always talk about the importance of experience, because I could talk to my kids about that till they're blue in the face. They do have to have their own experiences. I mean, this goes back to the beginning of our conversation when you were talking about kids have to learn. They're going to make mistakes. That's okay. That's part of the process, right? And we've talked about that on this podcast many, many times. But that's the other huge part of this is this idea that things are not going to bring happiness. What I like about your program is that it is letting them get the things that they think are going to potentially bring them happiness or whatever it might be, but they do it in a thoughtful way. And then it's only through, this is where I think the parent can be helpful also, is to do, we've talked about, like Joe Saul-Sehy was on our podcast. He called it the circle back technique, where you can kind of encourage reflection on the part of the kid in a week or 2 weeks or 4 weeks or whatever it might be about that purchase, just to have them think about it. So they may have thought one way about it, and then they may, when they got those Jordans that they think they're going to use 365 days a year, it's like, how's it going? Did you use those shoes 30 days in the past month? How are you feeling about your purchase? And not to say that they're going to sit there every time and say, you were right, I shouldn't have gotten it, or gosh, this was such a waste of money. It's more just that they're thinking about it. Isn't that what we're trying to encourage, Karen?
So I love that you bring that up, because we introduced a back to school list builder at summer camps this past summer, and people kind of went crazy for it. And the first step on the back to school list builder is called hits and misses. And we said, June teaches us a lot about September. So right at the end of the school year, I know the temptation is to just hurl the backpack in the garage or the corner of a room somewhere and not even open it until September. But right at the end of school, we encourage families to sit down just for 10 minutes and say, okay, what really worked this year and what didn't? Was there something that somebody in your class had, some tool, device, whatever it is, and you thought, wow, that would be awesome. It would make my life easier. Was there something that you begged us for and we bought you and you're like, actually, I didn't use it that much? What was worth it and what wasn't? And just keep that in mind for September when you do your back to school shopping,
Yeah.
because kids are reflective. And when it doesn't mean they have to forego a purchase at that moment, they're much more open to that process, right?
Yeah.
So you just want to sit back and go, okay, it's the end of the school year. What worked? What didn't? And then when you're heading into September, you're saying, okay, what do I need? What do I have? What can wait? What is such a big deal to me, but is also so expensive, I'm willing to treat it as an upcoming birthday or holiday gift? Or, mom and dad, would you let me crowdfund this amongst my extended family members? And all of those are opportunities for kids to stop and really say, do I really want this? Is it worth what I have to give up? Is it going to make my life better? Or if they're buying something for somebody else, is it going to make their life better? Like you and I kid around all the time. I don't want to sound like a Monty Python skit. When I went to school, when dinosaurs roamed the planet, right? Like I tell kids all the time, like I had a job at the Dairy Queen. So I had to take my paper paycheck to the bank, stand in line, and then the check had to clear, because when you were a 14-year-old Dairy Queen employee, you often didn't have as much money in your account as the check was for. So the check had to clear. Then you had to go back to the bank. Like, we didn't even have bank machines, right? You had to go back to the bank and get cash. Then the store had to be open when you were not in school. And there was like a really small window, like Friday night, Saturday, if you weren't at some sports or community event, right? And then the store had to have exactly what you wanted, what you needed in the right size, color, whatever. And then here's the final kicker. You had to have every dime on your person required to execute that transaction.
Yeah.
There was no picking up, I don't know where mine is, picking up the magic box, texting anybody, asking them to Venmo you the difference or whatever, right? Like, just none of that was available. So it's true. Retail science would call all of those things friction points. I call them opportunities. They were all opportunities. And by the time you went through that entire lengthy, arduous process, yeah, you were pretty happy with what you got because you'd really thought about it.
It's such a good point. I love when you put it like that, because there were so many friction points. I mean, it was so much harder to buy anything back then.
I mean, sometimes our son will say, well, why didn't you guys do whatever? And we look at him and we're like, are you kidding?
Yeah.
We didn't have digital printers.
Yes.
And Mark and I talk about how at our very last year of undergrad, there was a mainframe, and you could, take your floppy disk and go to the mainframe, and then it would come out, and then you had to peel the tab strips off the side, and then you discover a typo, and you just like go, oh, right? Like, I mean, I think it's actually really hard for kids because they're only living in the world they grew up in. Like, another thing we do is we ask kids, where does money come from? And you would be gobsmacked. Well, probably you wouldn't be, but other people are gobsmacked when we tell them the answers. The phone, the wall, that's a bank machine. Daddy has a magic plastic card. Now, when you think about it, kids are only describing the world they see around them, right? And it must honestly look like mom or dad have this magic plastic card, and they use it to get everything from a tank of gas to ice cream. So we keep on asking questions because the answer we're driving towards is no. Every dime that gets spent in a household is because somebody in that household has, wait for it, a J-O-B. And they earned wages. So what kids are doing is they're confusing payment methods with how they're funded. But it's an honest mistake given the world they live in.
Yes. And that's why I do think that I've been recently making the case, and even Barbara, when she came on, she makes the case too, that we should be introducing our kids to digital money earlier than we might think. And I first heard this from Chelsea Brennan, who's the Smart Money Mama. She came on, and I was actually kind of stunned. She said she was giving her 7 and 4-year-old, they were using the green light card. And she did that because she wanted to make sure that her allowance was consistent. And the 4-year-old was getting it because the 7-year-old got it. Right. So that's why that happened. But I also think it's really important to maintain some cash transactions when those kids pre-allowance, say 2, 3, 4 years old, giving them a little bit of money, doing a transaction, giving some cash, getting some change back, so that they see that that's what's happening on the digital side. They see that that's happening, so that they can at least start. They can understand that there's an exchange that's going on. So when we're making that, I'm just, as we're talking about this, I'm realizing, yes, it's okay, I think, to start the digital money process earlier, but that doesn't mean that there shouldn't be some cash somewhere in there for kids to conceptualize exchange. Does that make sense to you, Karen?
It does. I mean, look at the problem is the horse is out of the gates. I mean, there's a lot of stores now that don't even take cash.
Well, that's a good point. Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, we have to be flexible. However, it feels, we know this, there are studies, but just think about your own personal experience. It's just a lot harder to spend cash than, tap, tap,
Yeah.
tap,
Yeah.
right?
No doubt.
So, I mean, it's like everything. It's balance. It's balance, right? I mean, we need to balance all of these approaches.
Well, it gets to one of the key points that we've been talking about, which is that without the friction, I'm so glad you brought up the purchase from
From
from the
yesteryear,
dinosaur
yes,
age when we were
yes,
getting
yes,
our
yes,
had our first jobs and we had our passbooks and all of that.
yes, yes.
But it's good because it helps us all. We can all immediately think of all those friction points. So we as parents have to introduce these artificial friction points. So we've talked about the idea of a waiting period, which is that for purchases over a certain amount of money, just say to the kids, if you haven't set it as a goal on your jar, or if you haven't identified it as a goal on your app, you can't get that if it's over $50 unless you wait a week, right? And
You give a lot of those very helpful tactics in your book, and I do think that they're terrific. These are hugely transferable skills, right? Like
yeah.
impulse control does not just pertain to personal finances. It's hugely beneficial in all sorts of life.
Very true. Okay, now I have some questions I really want to ask you,
Okay.
including the fast and fun round question. Although I
Okay.
feel like we could go back and forth on this for a while, but there's a sidebar. I have to ask you about this. I was listening to this 1995 interview with Charlie Munger, the late Charlie Munger, Warren
Yes.
Buffett, longtime partner of Berkshire Hathaway, and he said he was talking, this is 1995. He's talking about
Got
this
it.
gambling, talking about gambling. He said this gambling compulsion is a very, very important thing. Look what's happening in our country. Every reservation, every river town, look at the people who are ruined by it. And now gambling is literally everywhere. I personally am disgusted by it. But every sports site, every sports event, I think it's only a matter of time before even like the icons of announcing, like the great Al Michaels, will be hawking parlays in between play calls because they're already doing it on screen. Okay, I gotta calm down a little bit now.
I mean, I hear you. I hear
So
you.
but let me since I just think it's imperative that we help our kids understand how dangerous gambling can be,
Hmm.
because it's now becoming the water that they're going to be swimming in, right?
Yeah.
It's right up there with smoking, in my opinion. Again, my opinion. Have you considered adding gambling as an item or an experience, one, to the DIM score? And I understand why you wouldn't, but I just
Mhm.
wondering. And then I will say, you will be happy to know I used the DIM score to run like an idea of a parlay,
Okay.
and it came back with a 5. So
Excellent.
it's
Excellent.
working as is. But
Okay.
anyway, I'm teeing that up for you. I want to get your thoughts on how we deal with what I really think is a scourge that our kids are going to have to address.
Well,
What do
I
you
will
think?
tell you, I am quite surprised at the surge in sports betting that's taken place as of late, because in the United Kingdom, they've already come out the other end of this. They know what a problem it is.
Mm-hmm.
They've had some huge mental health issues as a result of gambling indebtedness, and they now have regulation against it. So I'm a little surprised that in North America we're behind that curve. There's no question in my mind that, I mean, just like the phone thing in school, I mean, wait till 8 is the single greatest thing that's happened, if you ask me. And that change has come about so quickly. I mean, really, Jonathan Haidt wrote that book, and within 7 months, we saw huge changes in schools, huge
Sure.
positive changes.
Yep.
So I think that we'll come out on the other side. The question is how many people are going to be ruined in the interim. And I would put that into the category of a totally avoidable pitfall. So I haven't thought about a dim score calculator for gambling. I mean, I will tell you, people write to us all the time. I mean, we do actually have the questions for like first car, first apartment, but we're sort of, we want to stay in our lane. We
Sure.
think we do what we do really well for middle schoolers and maybe ninth and 10th graders. And I think our architecture would need more work because more consequential decisions need more questions and thought. But I do think the gambling is a problem. And I'm glad to hear that when you went through the process of even just pausing, gathering information, and reflecting on that decision, it guided you in the right direction. That's music to my ears.
Yeah. I mean, I don't use any of those apps. I will, to be fair, I run family pools.
Yeah.
But I only do that. We're talking about like $10. Like we're talking so little money. It's really just for entertainment sake. So I enjoy the idea. I enjoy the concept of it. I just think the way that it's structured now is really problematic because it is everywhere. Because I remember the day that ESPN went from just being showing scores to the next. It was literally the next day their update. Now it had scores and then all the odds underneath it, because they felt like they had to compete with all the other gambling apps that were on there.
Well, and the problem with the sports is that kids are such big sports fans, right?
Yep.
I mean, Hockey Night in Canada is a huge thing. Look at the World Series, it's a huge thing. I mean, kids are
Right.
glued to the screens. And when they see that, I mean, at a minimum, it's going to promote questions
Yeah.
and this idea that you can get rich quickly, which of course is just not true.
Well, and then you'll have celebrities, usually celebrity athletes, who will come on and they'll do those, PSAs where they'll say, "Don't chase your losses." But the whole business is around chasing your losses, because once you've lost this bet, well, don't worry, there's
Right.
another similar bet you can make. There seems to be an opportunity with almost in every second of every sports event. And that's so this idea that, well, we're giving this public good, these PSAs, is just a smokescreen over what is really a very problematic.
I mean, it's a big issue. There's no two ways about it. And I know people feel very strongly about the endorsements.
I appreciate you indulging me on that. I wasn't really thinking that you would be adding gambling to the dim score. But I figured I would ask. Okay. So before I ask you some of these fast and fun round questions and some big important questions, I do want to, what's an interesting fact about you that most people would not guess, Karen? A
Mm.
fun fact about Karen Holland.
Oh, I really like to sew.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What was the most recent thing that you sewed?
Well, as of late, I do a lot of altering. I'm
Mhm.
not the world's tallest person and I'm very short-waisted. So, I will tell you that movie stars and celebrities look great because literally everything is tailored to them. And
Mhm.
so I have learned over the years that you can buy almost anything off the rack. And if you tailor it, it's going to look great on you.
Wow.
So I do a fair bit of that. And that's a huge money saver.
How did you learn to sew?
My mom taught me. My mom taught us. As a matter of fact, one of my favorite Christmas gifts ever. I have a twin sister, and my twin sister is actually just a whiz sewer. I mean, she has her own serger. Do you know what a serger is? Like if you look at the inside of a garment
I don't.
where the thread overlooped and there's this tight edge, that's done with a serger. Very few home sewers have like a professional serger. My sister has one.
Wow.
And when we moved from Canada to the United States, my twin made arrangements for my husband to buy me the exact, I don't have a serger, but I have her identical sewing machine. And that's so that when I get myself in a pickle, I can call Kathy and she can talk me through it. And that, to this day, I mean, that happened a long time ago. That's one of my favorite Christmas gifts ever, because it's really handy. It is really handy. Let me tell you, it's emancipating when you can hem your own jeans or anybody else's.
Well, you'd be proud. I actually recently learned to darn.
Yeah.
You save a few socks, maybe some underwear, and keep it around for a little bit longer. All right. Well, that is an interesting fact. Thank you, Karen.
No
Okay,
problem.
so I want to ask you, what is one important truth that
Ah,
very few people agree with you about?
the Peter Thiel question.
Yes.
Well, I think it's that thinking before buying is so simple. What can it really accomplish, particularly for children who live with scarcity? I had a really good friend. This was very early on, like 9 years ago. And he said to me, this is a great idea, this whole gifting sense thing. But what you're going to be up against is people are going to say, do children really need formal instruction on thinking before buying, particularly children who live with scarcity? And he likened it to instructions for toothpaste. Do we really need instructions for toothpaste? And I categorically disagree with him. Obviously, here I am, like 11 years later. But here's my response. I understand where that comes from. I think there's this feeling that children who live with scarcity, don't get to ask for or receive, birthday gifts, holiday gifts, or back to school shopping or sports equipment or whatever it is. And certainly sometimes that's the case. I mean, in every school or community, there's a continuum of economic realities, right? Some children face daily hardships, others live with comfort, most of us live in between. But my experience is, and this has been corroborated with the many, many, many times I've spent in schools and conversations I've had with educators and school administrators, most children, of course, want to participate in fully in life as their well-heeled brethren. And most children expect that their birthday will be recognized in some form or fashion, right? When they're still of school age. The second part of that, instructions for toothpaste remark is this broader assumption that living with scarcity teaches us everything we need to know about money, because children who live with scarcity have to pick and choose at every turn, right?
Mm-hmm.
So here's my response to that. Living with scarcity might hone your ability to choose, because you do have to make these trade-offs much more frequently. It does nothing to demystify personal finance jargon, nor does it encourage you to gather information from all of the wonderful, trustworthy, accessible places there are to gather it from. And so just on those two fronts, it falls well short of what a simple framework that allows children to quickly but not arbitrarily impose a small amount of consistent thinking on a decision-making process. Like, it just doesn't get that job done. And as we've already discussed, when your default money habits and beliefs are being established, if you acquire the insight that anyone can get and use information to shape their future, well, think about how powerful that is. It's a game changer. And it's particularly a game changer for kids who live with scarcity. I mean, oftentimes principals will say to me, okay, we have this dynamic, we have that dynamic. How does your program suit all of the various dynamics that we have at play here? And my answer is, the program does something beneficial, but it does do different things for different kids. So for example, let's look at a child who lives with abundance. So you could say, well, they don't have to make a lot of trade-offs. They know darn well they're going to get Air Jordans and jeans for a birthday gift.
Sure. Yeah.
What our program does is give them something called a focus dividend. So we know that even if you grow up with money, that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be good with money. In fact, there's a cottage industry of private wealth managers who are now helping their clients become its children become money smart, because we know that growing up with money doesn't mean you'll be good with it. And so I always say, well, isn't the flip side to that coin that if you don't grow up with money, you can absolutely learn everything you need? And the answer is yes, right? Can't have it both ways.
Yep.
So it gives children who live with abundance a focus dividend. There was a huge study done at Princeton and U Chicago by Melanathan and Shafir. They actually wrote a book called Scarcity. And they said that for children who live with, extreme scarcity, I mean, I'm talking the tail end of the normal distribution curve, they have a cognitive bandwidth tax, right? So they're not even primed to learn. It's just about survival.
Yep.
And they use the example of a juggler. So if you think about somebody juggling, like, you're just looking like, where's the next ball? Where's the next ball? But being financially organized requires you to have a sight line beyond, just an immediate concern.
Yep.
So they did all of this work. I won't try to summarize, 5 years of somebody else's hard work in a soundbite. But the conclusion was that a rule of thumb, which is a simple reminder to avoid a pitfall, can really do a job for these kids, because they can't absorb anything else. So what's the dim score is that rule of thumb? I mean, most kids today have a cell phone after grade 8. Even if they don't have a data plan, so they can't actually calculate the doesn't make sense score in a store, once they've been introduced to the tool, once they've had a workshop, they can certainly stand there in line and say, okay, now how many times am I really going to use this? And what is sales tax going to add? And is it really worth it? And is there something else I'd rather have, right? So just being introduced to this process and understanding that it literally takes minutes to pause, gather information, and reflect before you make a decision. And chances are you're going to make a decision that not only you're going to be happier with, but your family. I mean, it's a big deal. And somebody did teach you how to use toothpaste. They told you how much to put on the brush, not to swallow it, and even just toothbrushing is another terrific example of how good habits adopted early in life permanently improve our well-being. Did you know that regular toothbrushing only became a thing after the Second World War?
I knew it was like last century. Yes.
Right. So, trench mouth wasn't just a term thrown around in the movies. Like, nobody looked after their teeth, and soldiers regularly couldn't complete their duties. So it comes down the chain of command, brush your teeth twice a day. Now, here's where I get excited. The war ends. Soldiers take this daily habit home to their families. In 40 years, John, this is nothing, a blip in the history of mankind, okay? Oral cavities go from an early onset childhood disease to a late onset adult disease. So all of our grandparents, I'm a little older than you, had dentures. Do you know anybody with dentures today?
Only someone who is in her 90s.
Right. We've basically eradicated dentures, and toothbrushing, very simple habit. Not only dentists teach their kids to brush their teeth, permanently improved the well-being of citizenry. Thinking before buying, very simple habit, when introduced young, has the power to permanently improve the well-being of citizenry.
Yes. And you can carry that metaphor a little bit further, because my first thought is, well, you're fighting against this consumer culture, right? Well, you are fighting against humans' desire for sweets. Like, that is hardwired into us. So I think that metaphor is pretty solid. I have two thoughts.
Okay.
One, I think, your friend who was challenging you, it's always good to have smart friends.
100%.
It's also assuming that people would know what questions to ask. Like, even when I went through your DIM score calculator, I'm like, I don't think about all these questions. Now I will be thinking about it. This is the beauty of it's always one of my favorite parts of the process. And I always tell parents, like, if you lean into this, you're going to learn just as much, if not more, in the process, even as you're teaching. I mean, this is probably the case with every teacher. You learn as much in the process of teaching as the student learns. The other thought, and this is, you really touched on this. I haven't thought about this topic in a while, but I had Chuck Kalish on, like, I don't know, it's like 70 episodes ago. And he is a child development expert. And he talked about, this was the issue with folks who are living with scarcity, is toxic stress. And what it does, getting to your point, it affects your decision-making, right? You cannot process. So, and that gets exactly to this question, the idea of asking the right questions. Your brain is compromised by the toxic stress. So very good point. I'm glad you brought that up. We'll put that in the show notes, because he talks about that a lot in that episode.
Scarcity is a great book. I mean, really, anybody working with young people today needs to read that book. It really, really helps you understand what these kids are up against.
Right. Well, we put that in the show notes as well. Well, that was a terrific answer to that question, Karen.
Well,
So I appreciate you thinking about that and giving us something to think about. Okay, so now are you prepared for the fast and fun round questions?
okay. Fast and
Okay.
fun.
These are a little easier, I think.
I think so.
So Karen, what does the term money empowered mean to you?
Well, I mean, I think it means something different to me as an older person. Now it means being able to do what I know is right for me versus what I can afford. I mean,
Nice.
that's a luxury that an older person has because stuff just means so much less to you as you get older. But that's my answer.
Very nice. What's the best investment of time or money you ever spent on your son?
Hands down, driving to all these mother loving hockey and baseball tournaments. But you're together with other families. And let me tell you, spending a weekend away with families at tournaments, like that really normalizes that money is scarce for many and finite for all. It normalizes all sorts of family dynamics. So I look back and I mean, at the time it felt like all we did, but I think it was really important and we miss it. We miss it now that it's over.
Very true. We're in the same situation and
Yeah.
we miss it as well. What advice do you most hope about money that your son will heed from you?
Well, we have this saying, it's translated from Latin, but know thyself and nothing to excess.
Hmm.
And it's just when you know what your non-negotiables are, it's actually really easy to make decisions because the line is just right there and you know what you'll step over and what you won't.
Yeah.
And similarly, like most challenges in life are about excess. And it's not just excess of, like it's not just too much food, it's too much dieting. It's not too much partying, it could be too much rest. Like everything is a balance.
Yeah.
And so just accepting that you really kind of want to hit the center when it comes to health and well-being choices and money choices. Most of the time the center won't let you down.
You've been invoking your mother. I'll invoke my mother because she's been saying it from day one. Moderation, moderation, moderation.
I mean,
And
it's
she listens, so she'll appreciate that.
okay.
Now all the sons are finally coming around and understanding, oh, yeah, that's why you kept saying that, because it makes
What do
sense.
they say? Your parents get a lot smarter the older you get.
No doubt about that. All right. So, Karen, if you could transmit a message that everyone would see, skywritten on a billboard, wherever, what would it say?
You got to know, John. Think before you buy. It's so easy. It is so easy. And we're getting ready to go to the National Educator Conference and our battle cry is thinking before buying is an easy to teach, powerful and sticky life skill. And we can give it to kids everywhere for nothing. So let's do it.
I like it. I like sticky. Sticky is a very good point there. All right. Other than your own materials, what is the one kind of money smarts book, podcast, tool, media that you go back to or you gift the most often?
I mean, I get asked this question a lot. So, no, but like by parents and educators, I mean, like
Yeah,
almost
right.
everywhere I go, people are like, okay, is there a book? So
Yeah.
there are lots of good ones. I mean, I will tell you, I've gifted your book. I've gifted Robin's book, The Wisest Investment.
Well, thank
I
you.
really like this Adam Ferguson's, the things you have to do before I buy you a phone. I like Die with Zero, Bill Perkins. I mean, I would say Age and Stage, because I now have an adult son. And so, our friends were all thinking about, if we're going to share with them, what's the best way to share with them. I really like Jim Grubman's Strangers in Paradise. When I was listening to your episode with Barb Coloroso, I was thinking, she talks about the jellyfish and the brick wall, and then you want of course the balance again.
Yeah.
Jim Grubman has a similar metaphor. So he talks about if you work really hard and you create some personal financial peace of mind. He said there's sort of three possible responses to that. And he uses the metaphor of the middle class compass. Have you read his book? Do you know what I'm
I
talking
have
about?
not. No.
It's fantastic. So he said the avoider can't like loosen their grip on the middle class compass. So even though the avoider has created personal financial peace of mind, they can only buy bread off the quick sale table. They cannot let go, right?
Yep.
And on the opposite end of the spectrum, he says the assimilator, he says, takes the middle class compass and throws it out the window of the Ferrari as they're barreling down the highway. And he said, what you want is an integrator. You want children who learn how to earn and spend money to solve problems.
Yeah.
You want them to just know that middle class compass is in their pocket. Oh, where's that compass? Oh, right. There's my North Star.
Yeah.
So that's another great book. There are a lot of great books, but I will say probably the one I've given away the most of, and again, it's an age and stage thing, is Fred Selinger's The Missing Link: From College to Career and Beyond.
Okay.
And what I love about that book is it's 27 granular chapters on what to do from your first postgraduate paycheck forward. He's very pithy. He taught the number one undergraduate course at UCal Berkeley.
Okay.
And he says there's only one problem with paychecks. They don't come with instructions. So that's a
great point. I'm going to definitely look that up because, as you know,
yes,
our oldest has just got her first job, so that's great. I will look that one up. And what was the other, Jim
Grubman, Strangers in Paradise?
Okay, yeah, the idea of it sounds like you learning to use money as a tool is such a core part of the process. All right, so Karen, we have you've gotten through the gauntlet of the fast and the fun round.
Okay,
and,
great.
I'm impressed, and your answer to the Peter Thiel question was terrific, and I'm not surprised. So, how can people find you and Gifting Sense online?
Well, they can type Gifting Sense. It's a wordplay, SENSE, not CENTS, into any browser on any device, and we're usually the first thing that pops up. We do have social media handles. I must confess, social media is not my milieu, but we are trying to be a little better about it. But everything you need is on the site. And can I give a plug for frequently asked questions? Somebody just told me nobody reads the frequently asked questions. And I'm like, well, then why did we spend all this time and effort answering the frequently asked questions? So we have a for parents page, a for teachers page, a how it works page. We have a present recognition page so you can learn about other people's experiences. Like everything you need really is on the site. By the same token, if you have a question, reach out via the contact us form. We respond to that thing every day. Actually, just before I got on today, I got a pencil order from a brownie troop in Texas. We ship pencils to kids everywhere because I have these pencils everywhere. There's no knapsack or drawer from which these pencils do not fall in my world. And all the kids get a pencil and it says, what's the DIM score right on the side? And we finish every workshop with a smiling reminder to sharpen your pencil and practice slow spending until it becomes a habit. People can order the pencils online, and we just got one from a brownie troop in Texas, which I kind of love.
Well, very nice. You can plug anything. You're a public good, Karen. So
thank you.
How can I say no to that?
Thank you. Well,
I appreciate your time. This was a lot of fun to have this conversation. And I can't stress enough to parents out there that you should definitely check out Gifting Sense because, like I said just a few minutes ago, it's something that not only will your kids learn from, but you will learn from, and it will really be helpful for them in learning how to make better money choices. So thank you, Karen.
Well, thank you, John. I really appreciate your time as well. You're a very well-read, thoughtful guy, and I appreciate the opportunity for this conversation.